Yeah. All right, all right, all right. It is a new year. It is Tuesday. It is the 3rd. I want to welcome everybody back to another weekly episode of Conversations with Commodores. And man, I am so pumped about our guest. We have got EJ, and I'm about to butcher his name. You got to get me. You got to help me out, EJ. I am
All
so
good.
sorry. I'm
No,
terrible.
you're fine. It's Egidio DellaRipa.
Egidio DellaRipa.
Yes, sir.
And I can assure you, when that man was on the offensive line, he was Della ripping some hearts out on the D line. And we're going to get into all that good stuff. The man was on a bowl team for Coach Mason's one year. He got 2 victories against the Orange, but that's just the start of it. Oh, we got a Russian in the house. We got Rob Chura, one of my buddies from back in the day, coming out of St. Louis. Hey, Rob, good Happy New Year to you, buddy. Hope all's well in your world. EJ, how does an Italian from California make his way almost completely across the country to play for the Black and Gold? Tell us some of your background, your origin story.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Southern California, like I said, small town of Castaic. It's a truck stop. It literally is a truck stop. You drive through that town, all you see is semi trucks, so they're everywhere. Grew up playing football, loved it. Had early on had dreams to play as far as I could go. Played. I think I started shooting 4th grade, went all the way up and through high school. Unfortunately, I went to a fairly new high school. The high school wasn't even built until 2014. Needless to say, there wasn't a ton of recruiting. Just nobody knew about it. And there was a ton of good talent in the area. There's, guys that have played in the league that, go to high school that went to the high schools right around the corner from me, but we just didn't have a name yet on the map. Which is interesting because they finally had some really good. The last couple of years they've been doing really well, which has been awesome to see guys that are getting actual D1 offers out of there now. But my time there, no recruiting. The 2 guys or the coaches that I had when they were able to get a scout in through our doors, they were kind of just trying to show off our quarterback and our linebacker because they passed the eye test a little bit better than when I was in high school. So I ended up going to a junior college for a year, and I didn't want to do that, frankly. I wanted to go to a D3 school out there, Cal Lutheran. I had gotten accepted. They gave me a really good chunk of money for financial aid. I was close to home. Like it would have been a nice little deal. The JUCO coach over there at College of the Canyons, which is literally 2 minutes away from my high school. Shout out to Ted Iacenda. He sat me down and we had like literally a 10-minute coffee at Starbucks. He's like, give me 1 semester. You play for me 1 semester, and I can't guarantee you anything, but I feel pretty dang confident I can get you offers, and you will be playing D1 football by the end of 20, whatever it would have been, 16. So I was like, all right, let's do it. He's a good salesman. I took the bait, and I'm really glad I did because I ended up getting. I actually had some offers to transfer out mid-year. I could have transferred out right after December. They were all D1 AA offers. I think I took 1 visit to Coastal Carolina. But
The Chanticleers.
Yeah, their mascot's hilarious, man. I went to one of their playoff games for my visit, and that thing dances like he does this like weird like dance, and the whole stadium gets up and does it. It's hilarious. But I got the offer so fast. My coach was like, "Listen, if you're getting offers now, like big time schools hardly ever recruit mid-year unless you are just that dude." But realistically, I mean, I was good enough to get recruited, but I was not, top 5 offensive linemen in the country or anything. So he's like, "Stick it out. People get hurt during spring ball. The big schools only they usually don't come through JUCOs until later on during the spring semester." So stuck it out, and just like you said. Plenty more bigger schools, bigger names rolling through. I was actually committed to Fresno State for about a month and a half. I went up there on an unofficial visit because the school is only a few hours away from my home. Drove up there, and I met with a name that, if you follow the team, you knew Cameron Norcross, Coach Norcross, who ended up coaching the offensive line at Vandy. I was actually committed to him at Fresno State for about a month and a half, and the caveat there was that they offered me a not a gray shirt, but a blue shirt opportunity, which is like this weird middle ground where you come in the summer as a walk-on, and then the fall semester starts, and the second the fall semester starts, they throw you on scholarship and you count towards the following year's recruiting class. So it's like this weird, like,
Yeah.
it's just a way to get around the system to basically waste one of your 2015 recruiting spots on a 2014 guy. So I was like, okay, I mean, that works for me. I could drive up and do summer if it's not terribly far. I can make it work. And everything else was close to home. Dad was already excited. He's like, I'm buying season tickets already, kind of thing. So it worked out really well. But I told them, like, hey, if you guys aren't going to give me the whole enchilada, my recruitment is still technically open. Like, yes, I committed, but if a big school wants to come through, or not even a big school, another school wants to come through and pitch themselves, I'm not going to tell them no. And they understood, they appreciated the forwardness. So I kept technically my recruitment open. Had a slew of more schools come in through, kind of just same level as Fresno State. I wasn't really, interested, like App State, I wasn't interested in taking a visit to go across the country for basically, in my head, same level of football, same level of education. Didn't really mean, it seemed like the better option to stay at Fresno State. Then I got a couple bigger offers. And it's like, okay, I wasn't expecting those, but I guess, some of these people, they see a kid that's getting, 1 or 2 offers a week, they want a piece of the pie kind of thing.
It starts to roll.
It builds. I have a lot of thoughts on the whole recruiting, what it is now through Twitter, or at least what it was, because it's already changed a lot since when I was in school.
Yeah. Well, you're an old man of 26.
Yeah. But I mean, I basically recruited myself. Like, obviously the coaches at COC did a great job too. They've always done well. They got a ton of coaches there through. None of that happens without them. But I mean, I got to shout out a couple of the guys on Twitter, like JUCO Football 4 and JUCO Football Frenzy. Like, I sent them out my tape. I'm like, hey, post it if you can. They did, and literally within hours, I had coaches from like Texas Tech, Texas, Maryland, in my DMs trying to talk to me. But that's a whole another topic. I got a couple bigger offers. Ended up getting an offer from Louisville. Went and took a visit out there. Didn't like it. I basically just said no while I was out there. But while I was on that visit, actually, one of the guys from Vandy hit me up and was like, hey, we saw your tape, like what you see, we want to get you out here on a visit. And I was like, okay, sounds great. At the time, frankly, I wasn't even like super well versed with Vanderbilt. I didn't, I obviously I knew about the school, but being a West Coast guy, like I wasn't fully aware of like the education, the academic side of the school. I just knew, kind of the conference. So I was like, all right, cool, no problem. Like, all right, just send me, first things first, got to get the the grades and everything cleared. Sent them that, got that cleared, took a visit, fell in love with the place. Mainly the city and the school, not even the program specifically. I kind of tried to keep that out of my decision. I was really trying to focus on the education side of things. And once I did the research and everything of what really Vanderbilt truly had to offer me, I was like, oh, well, it's not going to get any better than that. So
see, that is, I love to hear that. I love to hear that.
Yeah, and it's part of their whole pitch now, the 40-year plan versus the 4-year plan. Like that was my mindset going into the whole recruiting process. And at the time, right, if you compare Fresno State to Vandy, not to talk down on Fresno State by any means, but just like even if you just look the ranking numbers on US World Report, obviously Vanderbilt has a much higher stature. So I went, like I said, I went into it with a education first mindset. I did at the time have, aspirations to play in the league, but we all know the numbers. Like it's tough to say the least. So I wanted to make sure I was putting myself in a good position to do well after football and whenever that time came.
Well, sure. No,
that's how I ended up at Vandy.
Everybody has their path, to get to campus. And oh man, we got, coming out of California, we got George White's in the house. Hey, George, hope you're doing well, bud, and Happy New Year. George cheered in the early 80s for Vanderbilt. We got one of my teammates and classmates, John Denardi out of Chicago. Oh, we got the newly engaged Coach Bailey Paul Granier.
Mr. Granier.
Strong stash, EJ. And we got Everett Robinson. We got Kenny Cole. Man, we got a whole bunch of folks out tonight for number 76. It is the first conversation of the year, and I'm so glad we're having this. All right, let's talk a little bit about playing for Coach Mason.
Yeah.
Some guys, and I'm not here to ask you to downplay or to talk badly about the man, but everybody has their own relationship with their head coach. Love them or loathe them, it is what it is. It was what it was. Playing for Coach Mason, a lot of folks said that maybe the job at the time he came in, because he was a DC out in Stanford, coming into the SEC, that's too big of a job to start with. But he was there for 7 seasons, bowl games, including one you went to, played in. What was your initial impressions when you first met Coach Mason as a freshman, or when you were being offered?
Yeah. So when I first met the guy, he's one of the, I say I committed to the school and not so much the program, but he absolutely had an impact on that. I don't think anybody commits if their coach doesn't do a good job, right? But yeah, no, I met with the guy, and like my first impression I got was like, this dude really cares about his players. Like, obviously he wants to do well, but it was clear to me that he genuinely truly cared. Yeah, the best example I could give is when I said I visited Louisville and I told them no on the spot. That was one of the biggest reasons why. I met the coaching staff over there, and they all seemed like nice guys, but it just seemed like their motives were a lot different. And it just didn't gel right with me. So, on the flip side, everything gelled really well with Coach Mason when I was on my visit. I will say that was on the visit. So things changed a little bit, and when I first got there, and then a lot of bit shortly after. But on the visit, no, I was totally, 100% all in with the guy. When I got there, though, the script kind of changed a little bit, and not to say that the guy just like lied, because I heard stories from the guys, like the older guys that were there when I first came on campus, and they talking about like Franklin and like how he would just flat out lie to your face. Like Mason never did anything like that. It's not like he just pitched me on a bunch of false hope and dreams during my recruiting visit. There was just a tougher love side of the thing that no recruit is going to experience that on their visit, right? They're there to sell you. But when you get there, it's a little bit more reality. And at the time, I had a little bit of harder time adjusting to that reality. I don't want to say the dude wanted me to quit or was trying to make me quit, but that was the impression that I was starting to get, was like, I don't even know if he wants me here anymore, kind of thing. There was some hiccups that we had with, and it wasn't even his fault, or honestly, it wasn't my fault either. It was just a miscommunication or something with the academics office between my community college and Vanderbilt, with credits not transferring. I wasn't even eligible my first year because they said I was a qualifier and everything. And then I get there, I'm halfway through summer camp, and Tyler Barnes, the player personnel dude at the time, comes in and tells me, he's like, hey, dude, like 2 of your classes didn't transfer. What's up? I'm like, what do you mean what's up? You told me I was good, kind of thing. So, that whole conversation doesn't make it to Mason. Now he's just looking at me like I'm the guy who failed 2 classes, right before he transferred.
Right.
Kind of set a weird, it changed the tone really of like my freshman year, in my opinion. But kind of like, I tried to just block it all out. Once Barnes told me I wasn't even eligible, like, I was trying to be realistic with myself. There was, guys like Spencer Pulley, Jake Bernstein, Delano Crooks, like big dudes in front of me who I'm not going to play over them. I didn't think I was. When I was getting recruited, Coach Leitner at the time, he told me flat out on my visit that his plan was to redshirt me. And that was another thing, was I don't think Mason knew about that, because he basically looked at me, he's like, where'd you come from? Like, we had these plans for you. I was like, what plans? My plans were redshirt. Like, at least that's what I was told. So that's where it's like, it seemed like not everybody was on the same page when I got there. And I was just like, I'm not sure what's going on. But, obviously Leitner ended up leaving after that year. After my freshman year, Coach Norcross came in. Once Norcross came in the picture, things changed a lot for me. As far as the relation to Mason, to keep on the focus of your first question, once Norcross got in there, it was kind of just Norcross and nobody else. And I don't know if maybe other guys, because we didn't talk about it too much at the time as players, but I personally didn't feel like, Mason was, it sounds dramatic, but he wasn't much of a head coach to me. Even when he was there, he was still just manning the defense. And I could probably count on one hand how many times that dude actually came over to our position group and actually tried coaching us up. And there's a difference, right, between coaching us up and just coming over to cuss us out. Because he did that, but to actually come over and try and, teach me about first step and staying low, just like basic things that anybody should understand about being an offensive lineman, that never really happened much. So once I realized that wasn't going to happen, I kind of just got rid of any expectation that I had in my head. And I was just like, all right, Norcross is obviously the position coach. I kind of looked at it, this is big level, this is big time football. It's more of a profession than it is a hobby. The head coach isn't going to be your best friend. Obviously, they I get it. They have to keep a distance, right? They can leave overnight, right? And bigger school gives them a bigger offer, they disappear. It's probably safer for them to treat it that way. And I get that business side of things. But once I realized that, hey, this guy's just, it is what it is. He's got his spot. He's mainly a defensive minded guy. It was kind of like, Norcross and Ludwig were my two dudes, and that's who I talked to.
Well, I was going to say, you coming from a new high school program and a new high school,
Mhm.
and going into the junior college ranks where they don't have nearly as much staff,
Right.
particularly compared to Power 5 SEC. So you're transitioning each level and learning how the system worked at each. And I have learned over the years, every head coach at Vanderbilt or at a college, they have their own personality. So they have their own system, they have their own way.
Mhm.
And I could see where your focus was with your position coach. I get that. I really
Mhm.
do. I think it's the rare coach who has the ability to connect with all of the players.
Yeah.
And really know them, as opposed to just going to each of the head coach. And maybe that's a difference in an experienced head coach on a Power 5 level
Mhm.
versus a coach who is just trying to, figure out the system. We got Everett Robinson. Coaches indeed need to be on the same page. I was one of Mike Dubose' slip up from going to Bama. Yeah, I hear you, Everett. I really do, bud. Side note, Everett, Coach Dubose, way after Alabama, made his way to my former high school, Northview, down in Dothan, where he proceeded to be 0-10 for the season, and he was summarily let go. So he goes from I think did he win an SEC championship at Alabama? He goes to 0-10 in 6A Alabama football. Anyway, let's go. EJ, here's what I want to take a kind of we're all over the board here. There's no
Go for it.
specific path.
Mhm.
You come from Italian family, Italian descent.
Yep.
EJ quickly became your nickname of choice. I want you to tell us how the nickname came about,
Mhm.
and all the derivations of your name and what you've heard over the years at Vanderbilt.
Oh God.
Now, keeping in mind, this is going to be a public video later on.
Right,
You can
right.
post the adult version of those later on.
Yeah. So EJ was a name that I grew up with. That's the name that my parents gave me. That's what everyone called me growing up. You sit there in class every year, the new teacher, new grade, they're reading off the list, and that they're getting by alphabetically by last name. They're starting to hit the D's, and I grew up in Southern California, so there was always a lot of like Della Rosas. If I knew a Della Rosa was called, I knew I was right after that. And I would just kind of smile and like wait for it, and just, all right, they're gonna try, and I'm gonna give them a chance. And yeah, you get the most common one was Egidio. It's like people just went dyslexic or something when they see my name, and they switch the D and the G.
Reversed it.
They just reverse it.
Right.
It's that one's actually the most confusing one to me. It's like,
Uh-huh.
what makes you reverse it? But Egidio, again, being in Southern California, a lot of the Hispanics around there would see it and call me Egidio. That's totally makes sense.
Right.
Shoot. I had friends that would just make up stuff to try and mess with me. One that stuck a long time through my childhood, and this is gonna be totally weird, but it's Egiblio. Kid on my street growing up gave me that just randomly one day. He's like, it sounds like a Giblio, and then like three other guys heard it at the same time. We're like, we like that. We're gonna stick with that. I still have like an old I think it's like a YouTube account or something that has that that has my username.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
But yeah, I grew up with a bunch of other names, and I'm blanking on some of them, but yeah,
Well,
EJ was just what stuck.
Here's one of your teammates chiming in, and no, it's
There we
not
go.
Bruno. We're going to get to Bruno in a minute.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if I even Pizza Boy.
Yeah, Pizza Boy. I didn't get far enough into the timeline. I haven't gotten to college yet. When I got to college,
who called you that?
That would have been Bailey, Bruno.
Boom. That's who
Reed.
typed it. Yep.
Yeah. Bailey, Bruno, Reed, and Cole Harden at the time. Reed Nelson, Cole Harden.
Just remember, Bailey, EJ and a whole bunch of us are likely going to just show up at your wedding. Just keep that in mind, because there will be a rehearsal dinner, speeches. Anyway, let's get back to you, EJ.
That's funny. But yeah, they gave me a whole bunch of names. Pizza Boy was the one that stuck. I think Reed Nelson might actually still have my name in his phone as Pizza Boy. But yeah, that was like, it's funny because when I first got there, the people who didn't know my name, they saw Egidio and like Barrett Gallagher. I don't know why I remember this, but plain as day in the offensive line room, I was like, Norcross would do these things where we all had to introduce ourselves and tell everybody, especially like anytime the new freshmen came in, we would have to do kind of intros, and even the guys who had been there would have to do their intro again. And for my first year, I am explaining, and someone asked me like, what's your name mean? I was like, my name means young goat in Italian. I think it's like Latin technically, but in Italian means young goat. And Barrett looks at me sideways, he's like, Italian? I thought you were Mexican. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I was like, why? And he goes, well, you're brown. I was like, looking at my skin, I'm like, I don't think so. I'm coming from Southern California where it's like
Yeah.
Latino when you see one. But
Right.
to him, I was like, well, it's a guy who's from, I think Paris, Tennessee, or Saudi Daisy, Tennessee, one of those two, something like that. So it's funny that apparently people thought I was Mexican when I first got here, but once I clarified that I was Italian, then the pizza jokes and
Right.
stuff started coming up.
Hopefully it was all in love.
Oh, it was. There was never any ill intent behind any of it.
Well, EJ, we got one of my former teammates, Scott Penny, out of Florida. Hey, Scott, good to see you, bud. Thanks for joining us tonight. Let's talk about that junior college to SEC transition. You talked about it just a little bit, but I assume in the junior college, there's only a handful of coaches on each side of the ball, and share that going from junior college to major college football.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you actually made a point about it too, about the whole, the relationship building. That's one thing that anybody who's played JUCO knows, that there is very much so a every man for himself mentality. The players that are there are strictly there to get out. They want to get offers. They want to get recruited. They don't care about anybody else. You build friendships, and I still talk to some of my JUCO buddies to this day. But the goal when you show up day one is you're like, all right, I'm working to get an offer, and then that's kind of the goal. And really at the coaching level too, it's pretty rare that you don't see this. The coaches are trying to get out too. The coaches want to make a name for themselves just as much as you are. They want to get into Power 5 Division I football. COC was the exception to that, and that's honestly, it's one of the biggest reasons why I was so excited about at first I was apprehensive, right? I didn't want to go to JUCO. It has in Santa Clarita Valley, where I'm from, College of the Canyons has this image as being a trap. If you end up at junior college, if you end up at COC, you're going to be stuck there for years. It's so hard to get classes scheduled. Like on average, it's like just to get your AA, which they tell you should take 2 years, it takes most people 4 to 5. So it has an image, and I was like, I don't want that image. If anything, like I would literally rather just go to a community college further down in the valley, like Pierce. Pierce has a reputation of getting guys out. They don't do very well, but the coach is just there. Maybe they have a lot of connections. I don't know what it was. But once I met Coach Iasenda, Teddy, I was like, no, I need to play at COC.
Wait a second.
Yep, Iasenda. His brother played at Vanderbilt.
Andy Iasenda was in my recruiting class.
That's hilarious.
He was a fullback.
Yep.
He didn't last very long. He was talented, but oh my gosh, that's a small world. We'll have to come back to that. But yeah, Andy Iasenda, and he wanted to be called Ice.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I've never met him. I've only ever hung out with Teddy, but
that's so great. That's why so great.
Coach, I was very excited about my Vandy offer, because he's like, dude, I got Vandy ties. That's awesome. But
sure, they were short-lived. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, EJ, let's talk about, you come in and there was Coach Mason and the position coach may not have been on the same page, but finally, I mean, you redshirted, you got things straightened out. Typically, that redshirt year is actually a very good growth year.
Oh, absolutely.
Were you able to use it, not just academically, but athletically and maybe socially or whatever else? A California guy coming to, the deep South, there had to have been some of those social adjustments as well. I know football players are football players, but talk to us a little bit about those adjustments for you that freshman year.
I would say the biggest adjustments were actually on the field related. Things like, fixing my BMI. You go on 4 or 5 official visits, they feed you right, and you walk in there a little sloppy. The redshirt year, I dropped, I think I walked in there at like 311. I got dropped all the way down to like 285. And then Coach Dobson, love Coach Dobson, man. He built me right back up. And I ended up finishing, I think, at the end of my senior year back up at like 317, but like
So it's
11 or
sculpted,
12%.
a lot
Yeah, a
more.
lot more sculpted, a lot
Yeah.
much better in shape.
Yeah.
Felt a lot better. But yeah, I got a lot better in the field. I got a lot better in the weight room, just healthy wise. I got a lot better. But yeah, adapting to Southern living was a big difference. I'm used to the big city, and not that Castaic is big city, but it's close enough to where you get the
Yeah.
feel for it. You know, people in California, same way as New York, and everyone minds their own business. Someone says hello. You know, you're checking out at Walgreens or something, and the cash register just wants you to kind of screw off a little bit. Like they don't want to deal with you. They just get out of here. And I remember being at the Walgreens. It's either Walgreens or Rite Aid. I don't even think it's even there anymore. That's right across the street from Towers. And
it was a Rite Aid. It was Eckerd's, then a Rite Aid. Yeah.
Yeah. So not even Towers anymore.
Yeah.
I remember walking in there. I had to buy like laundry detergent. I think it was. I was picking up Tide Pods, and the lady was just like, there was no one else behind me, and she just started a conversation. And I was like, trying to get out of here. I'm like, don't bother me in my California way of thinking. I was like, she's just having a super friendly conversation. And that happened a lot. And I was like, why is everyone so friendly here? Like people just, hey, have a great day, or people, just random people that you see on the street just nodding or even saying hello. And I'm like, people in California, they walk around with a hood on, their headphones on, and they don't talk to anybody. So yeah, there was definitely a culture shock when I got to the South, when compared to being from sunny Southern California.
OJ Fleming and one of my roommates, Fred Peterson, are with us. Hey, fellas, what about the food? What food did you have to get used to, or did you like? I know there's a lot of fried foods in the South. Did you have that growing up?
Yeah, I had that growing up. I do come from an Italian household, and my dad is a huge cook. But he kind of takes pride in being able to cook whatever he wants, not just Italian food. You ask him to cook anything, and he'll make it happen. So I admittedly I grew up eating quite well. And it's funny, my Bailey and Bruno and them would always give me crap when I first started, or when I first got there, because we'd go out to eat at places, and then apparently I would always just say, it's all right. Whenever like we'd talk about the food, I was kind of a food snob. I still am a food snob. I was a spoiled kid growing up. My dad cooked a lot of good food.
Food at home is always better.
Yeah.
Food at home is always better. All right, I want to shift. I want to talk about Bruno for a minute. Because there's a rumor going around that I'm starting right now that you almost didn't stay at Vanderbilt because of Bruno.
I thought Bruno hated me when I first got there. I was on an official visit, and Bailey took me up to his dorm room, and Bruno, all he cared about was whatever. I think he was playing like video games or something in their dorm room. And I was like, I couldn't care less about me being there. So the first time I ever met Bruno was up in, I think, Bailey and Cole's dorm. And yeah, he was just like, hey, what's up? And he just turned right back around, went back to playing video games. So it's like, oh, good to meet you too.
Yeah, because you're the competition. He didn't want to acknowledge you. Bailey wants to know, do you miss California burritos of the beach of Santa Monica?
I don't know where he's getting that from, but yes. I do love California burritos, and I'm sure Santa Monica has really good ones.
Maybe on your bio and your Scorpion website or something?
No, I've never listed that anywhere, but California burritos are really good, and I'm sure Santa Monica has good ones. So yeah, I miss them.
Well, EJ, let's talk about that. Moving up the depth chart, playing against SEC competition, there were some really outstanding defensive players on the other side of the ball that you're practicing against. Was that Cunningham? Was that during his time? Who else? I mean, just talk about how practices were preparing you guys for Saturdays.
To this day, I think the hardest player I ever went up against was Adam Butler. That was a perfect guy. My freshman year, my redshirt year, that I was solely just lived on the scout team, and I got to block Adam Butler for an entire year. And that dude, like, whether he knows it or not, he helped me gain so much knowledge and just expertise on how to play football. He was a really talented individual. So yeah, him, Zach Cunningham, even guys like Rana, I remember, and I only mentioned him because I think we got into fights like 3 or 4 times during the year, but Landon Stokes, who played outside linebacker DM type guy, yeah, just really, really talented dudes that helped prepare me to actually get on the field, my sophomore, junior, and senior year.
And obviously Zach's still in the league, and Adam played with the Patriots at the time. I think he was in the Super Bowl, may have been a Super Bowl. I don't remember if they won it that year.
I think he did. I think he's got a ring.
and I want to say maybe with the Packers. I'm not sure if he's still in the league or not right now. but those are Sunday guys. And that can only, I mean, practicing against those guys can only make you better and give you more confidence. Let's get out of freshman year. Let's move into sophomore, junior year. Was the game slowing down a little bit for you, you know, from an experience standpoint, or was the offense continuing to change and you're having to rebuild that memory bank each season?
So it's funny, kind of it slowed down for me and then it didn't. And what I mean by that is my sophomore year there was all like I kind of in between was like second string, third string / practice squad. I did a lot depending on who was, you know, injured or not, but I didn't really get any playing time. The only time I got on the field my sophomore year when we were up or down by a lot. And at that point, you know, it's end of the game. The guys that are on the other team, they're gassed and probably they got their backups in too. So I didn't truly get a full game experience my sophomore year, even though I thought I did. Junior year rolls around and I'm feeling really confident. The playbook hasn't changed at all. I understand it a lot better. I can confidently, I hear a play, don't even have to second guess anymore what I'm doing. Did I make mistakes? Yes, but whatever. I didn't start until I think it was week 4. Florida was my first official start, my redshirt junior year. And that was where like I walked in, I was feeling pretty confident. You know, we had really good week of practice. I felt really good about the game plan. And then snap 1 happened and everything went way faster than anything ever did in practice. and if you probably, you could go on YouTube and watch the film. I think there's a video on there, but there's one play, man, where it's just a simple, basic inside zone. I took 1 step, I looked up and that middle linebacker was already in my face mask. And he literally just made my knees buckle under me. And I remember just laying there. I'm like, wow, that was really fast and hard. like that was like, holy cow, this is what football actually feels like. And I remember that play itself was my wake up moment.
Well, all right. I don't want to embarrass you, but take me to the Sunday film session when you see that play. How many times did that get rerun?
It got reran a few times, and it wasn't even like Norcross knew, and that's why I appreciate Norcross is because, like, you know, he coached hard, but he was a realistic dude for the most part. And when that play came up, he didn't rewind it because he was pissed or that he was like trying to actually coach me up. He literally played it, and then he looked at me and goes, "Welcome to the SEC." And then he played it a few more times because it was funny. But no, surprisingly, I didn't really get chewed out that play.
Now, during the season, a lot of guys say because they're so programmed with your schedule on a daily basis, practice, sleep, weights, books, whatever, they actually make better grades during the season. I know that I did. I know in the spring when I got a lot more free time, I tended to go to the lake or screw off or whatever. What was your routine like during the season? Did you find academics to be harder to fit in and to be part of that routine, or were you pretty regimented guy?
I was a fairly regimented guy, and one of the things that helped was because of my first year where things didn't go too hot. I actually got put on like not like full academic probation, but they did like this tiered system. Basically, whatever your GPA was kind of dictated how many hours you had to get in study hall. And because I technically failed the class my first semester there, I got immediately thrown into 8 hours. I think that was the max of what a player could have to get in a certain week. And that really helped because obviously Vanderbilt, it's not an easy school, but the academic or the athletic department does a really good job, in my opinion, of getting tutors accessible for players. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be in the study hall for 8 hours a week, I might as well sign up for tutors. Like it wouldn't really benefit me to just sit there and listen to music for 8 hours a week. So that first year, not just first semester, but that first year, I was on 8 hours a week mandatory, and I just got tutors. And I was like, you know what? This turned things around really fast. And I just kind of forced that upon myself. Even my sophomore and junior year, when I only had to do 4 hours a week, I was like, okay, maybe I'll only have to do 4 hours, but I'm still going to make sure that those 4 hours a week are being used by study hall, like 2 hours time. My senior year was a little different just because I didn't have as many classes. Like I was a mid-year guy. I graduated in the fall anyway. So it wasn't as crazy my senior year, but definitely my sophomore and junior year, I regardless of what I had to do, I made sure and signed up for tutors for all my classes, regardless of spring or fall semester.
Did they have either at McGugin or somewhere on campus a dedicated study hall location?
That was McGugin. Yeah, that was McGugin Center. Yeah, they had a full study hall room.
Guys who were in school with me in the late 80s, I don't remember anything organized like that. I remember having tutors, but I remember I paid for them. There was
Oh,
not,
wow.
and I was on scholarship. It wasn't paid through the school or through the athletics department.
Oh no, this
But,
is all done through the department. But I think even if you're a walk-on, you get it for free. Just it's through the athletic department as a whole.
well, I think that's wonderful now over the last years. Talk about from a social standpoint. You're not the size of the average Vanderbilt guy who's on campus.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to be at a big state school. You're revered as one of the gods on campus, but not a lot of guys have that experience in their undergraduate years at Vanderbilt. What was it like for you socially, either, walking around campus, in class, at some of the local hangouts? What was that like from a social standpoint?
I will say it's probably just more so me, but I think a lot of players could identify with the larger picture of it all is that you're right. If at a big state school, maybe the football and the sports are a little bit more, idolized, if you will. But that was not the case, at least for me at Vandy. No one really seemed to care about the sports there. I remember being in my first year, I was in a corporate management like studies class type of thing. And we had a Thursday game. It was the game when we played Western Kentucky on a Thursday. It was 2015. People were like, I just kind of casually let the teacher know that I had to leave a little bit early because even though I wasn't playing or dressing, we still had to show up for door alley. Teacher really didn't seem to care, but she did make a kind of a small announcement at the end of class saying hey guys, this is football game today too. I'm going to be there. Hope to see you guys there. And a couple of like frat kids sitting in the back were just like, we can't care less. Like someone made a comment about just like, yeah, who gives a shit? Sorry, my French, but
or you're Italian.
But it was just like I was sitting there like, really? Like I get it's not a state school, but like really? Like it's still SEC. Like there's literally no hype at all. And then obviously there wasn't a huge student section showing that game.
Those are the kind of guys that went to Vanderbilt but pulled for Tennessee.
Right.
Or pulled for wherever they're from, that state school where they're from.
Yeah. So socially, I was like, obviously there wasn't a lot of support just for athletes in general. But I mean, to be honest, I'm a fairly introverted guy. I can be loud. I have Italian. I have a voice that carries and all that. And when I'm comfortable with you, I'm the loudest dude in the room. But I'm a fairly introverted guy. So socially, it was kind of just the football guys that I hung out with. I did have a few close friends that I made on campus that we can just call like regular students for lack of better words. But I mean, I can count on one hand those people. I really didn't hang out with too many people that were general student body. It was kind of the football dudes.
It's hard to have much of a social life. When you're trying to do everything you're supposed to do to stay eligible, stay on scholarship, it really is hard. If you want to get any rest and lift weights and watch film, there's only so many hours in a day. So I get it. I lived it. I know. Guys, we're talking with number 76 coming out of California through Nashville. Where are you now? Where's life taking you? Where do you live?
I live up in Gallatin, Tennessee. I technically did move back to California after I graduated, got a job at Scorpion Marketing or Scorpion digital marketing. They went to permanent work from home if you wanted it when COVID hit, and we had already been working from home for like 4 or 5 months. I was like, hey, I'm doing just as fine from home than I am in office. I'll just stay home. And they're like, yeah, if you want to go remote, go for it. And I was like, I don't want to stay in California. My long-term plans was to get out of California. So I was comfortable and familiar with Tennessee and Nashville. So I moved back here in beginning of 2021, and then met an amazing girl. I don't know if she can hear me or not. She's in the other room up here in Gallatin. And my lease came up earlier this year. So I ended up moving up here and moving in with her. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm up here in Gallatin, Tennessee now.
Gallatin is the home of so many awesome Vanderbilt Commodores. We got Jeff and Daryl Holt. We got Goo Baby, Carl Woods. We got John Short. I could go on and on and on. You guys need to reach out to EJ. That's awesome that you're there, because there really has been a pipeline over the years of Gallatin High School. I know John Short's dad coached there for many, many years. Big program. EJ, let's talk about you're now in your 4th year. You're going into, you've got one more semester. You kind of see maybe the light at the end of the academic tunnel. I don't know about what your thoughts were from a football, if any level of professional ball, or maybe you were just ready to done and move on to the next phase in life. But for a lot of us who aren't going to go play professional sports, you're lining up jobs, you're lining up maybe grad school, things like that.
Mhm.
Mine tends to wander, not as focused for some of us, on the sport you're there for, and really you're looking to the future.
Mhm.
Talk to us about that last football season, well, the last two seasons, your redshirt junior year and then your senior year. From a football standpoint, were you able to stay focused, or were you starting to kind of branch out mentally at the future?
That's an interesting question, and I'd say to be completely candid with y'all, it's funny because my retro junior year was when I finally got on the field, but that's kind of also when I mentally kind of made the decision that I really didn't have any more aspiration to play at the next level. So the whole NFL, the league thing, that kind of went away between my freshman and sophomore year, to be completely honest with you. I stuck around obviously because I still love the sport. Obviously, I love my teammates and everything. I would never quit on them. Also, paying for school kind of helps the situation a little bit if we're being
Sure.
100% honest with each other.
Yeah.
But no, I to be frank, I didn't want to play at the next level anymore. So it didn't really distract me my junior year. Like, I got on the field, I had a great time my junior year. I was just having especially once I was officially starting, I was having a lot of fun, just kind of, it sounds cliche, but living in the moment kind of deal. Senior year, that's when kind of reality started hitting me, and I like I said earlier, I wanted to stay out of California if I could help it. So towards the tail end of the year, I did start looking at jobs and trying to get interviews and stuff lined up for when I was done. And it was one of those things that we're going into the last two games of the year. Got to beat Ole Miss, got to beat Tennessee if we want to go to a bowl game. And if 2016 repeated itself, sure, we're going to another one. But I didn't know if that was going to happen or not. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start doing it now. And I'd like to say, and I feel I can confidently say, I didn't really let football take a hit. I did it on my own free time, Sunday nights. Sure, could I have been watching film? I'd already watched enough film that day. So I did take some of my personal time and start submitting job applications and things like that. And to be honest, I actually had about 3 or 4 lined up during the month of December, but as you know, we ended up going to a bowl game, and all my time got taken up with bowl practice. So I ended up having to cancel every single one of them. The only thing I didn't get canceled was wasn't even an official interview. It was more or less just a meeting with a connection that I had made during my summer doing an internship with the Vanderbilt Career Center. One of the women that works in there has a connection with a communications firm in downtown Nashville, McNeely, Piggott and Fox. So I ended up getting a meeting with one of their senior partners at that firm, and we had a really nice meeting, but it wasn't like a job interview. So the job interviews that I did have ended up having to fall through because I had to cancel them, and that kind of more or less forced me going back to California. But I don't think it ever really took me off any kind of path or anything like that for football.
And I should have prefaced this by saying I didn't mean to imply at all
Oh, I didn't take it as that.
that you weren't committed or that you didn't give it your best. I just know that when guys kind of see the transition in life, as we all do, from going from being the athlete that we've always been to no longer being in that competitive arena, I think it's natural. It's normal tendencies to start looking at what's next in life. Do you think that your undergraduate training, your undergraduate classes and degree, did that at least in some way prep you for your career now at Scorpion?
I do and I don't. And this isn't a Vanderbilt specific thing. It's kind of a higher education as a whole thing. And just all my friends from high school and everything that have gone through college now. I think there are a lot of kind of wastes, if you will, in college, having to take 2 years of general ed courses that have nothing to do with what you end up majoring in. So in a way, no. But in a way, yeah, too. I think I ended up majoring in economics. I don't do much of anything with economics right now. I'd say everything that I used from economics, I gathered from kind of like my intro courses, my first 2 years there. But the minor that I got in corporate strategy, that absolutely does translate to everything that I do now. So I that's why I say it's a yes and a no. No, because there was a lot of just kind of time wasted on subjects that were interesting and awesome. I got to take some cool classes and meet some cool professors, but as far as what actually translated, I could probably narrow that down to 6 or 7 different courses that I took.
Well, from coming from a history major to law school. I love history, but it didn't exactly,
Right,
I ended up taking
right.
a major that I really enjoyed and still enjoy today. What about from an organization, a strategies from a priority standpoint? You really, if you're going to stay in school and play ball, you really have to be organized. And a lot of that comes, I guess, falls or is cultivated your freshman or your redshirt year, if you will. But you're still on a team, even though you're not on the gridiron, you're still part of a team. And I know there's a lot of parallels there, but kind of take us through it with your crew that you work with, Scorpion. Kind of share with us how that equates to being on a team from a sports standpoint. And Bruno says he's actively teaching some judo class. He's going to get you later. I mean,
Oh,
get with you later.
oh, okay.
I get because he's not too far from me. What is he, an hour? Is he an hour away?
If that, yeah. Yeah, he could track me down if he really wanted to.
All right. Well, I didn't mean to sidetrack there.
You're good. You're good.
But talk about the team concept and working within that team environment, even now with Scorpion.
Yeah, absolutely. It translates perfectly, in my opinion. And I obviously, not obviously, I don't know if not everyone would know this, but Scorpio was my first and only job out of college. I have not worked an official job other than working at Scorpion. So maybe other firms are different and other places are different. I'm sure they are. But as far as Scorpion, everything at Scorpion that we do is this team oriented. We can't function if we're not working together as a team. Basic skill sets, communication, I think, is obviously the biggest one that most people would probably agree with me on. You can't do much if you're not working together as a team, and to work together as a team, you guys have to communicate effectively. Whether you're an offensive lineman and you're trying to get calls, made right before the ball snapped, or you are about to jump into a urgent meeting with some, VIP clients of yours, and you and your team need to be on the same page before you get into that meeting. Communication has to be at the forefront of everything that you're doing. But also just the ability to work well with others, and being friendly and being personable. Like I said, I'm an introvert, but once I get comfortable with people, I'm super personable and loud and energetic. I think that some of the other life lessons I think that I grabbed from football, maybe a little bit more like I'm blanking on the word that I would use to describe it, but no, I guess, yeah, like you have to work together as a team if you want to do well at Scorpion, but I would probably have to argue that any environment that involves working with another person, I could probably draw anything I needed to from being a football player.
Did you ever work in a brick and mortar setting with Scorpion before you went?
Yeah, we did operate out of an office. I worked out of the office in Valencia for started there in March of 2019. It shut down, I think, in like the middle of 2020.
And did you ever just pull up in a passing stance, defense, a passing offensive lineman stance when Linda from accounting walked by? She's like, "Dude, what are you doing here?"
just give her a quick punch.
That's right, just quick punch.
I had a couple people in the office that were actually like really into football, and then once I told them that I played, they're all super into it. So, and there's another guy at Scorpion that played college football, super small world. He played football for Cameron Norcross when Norcross was coaching at Nevada back in the day. So he knew who Coach Norcross was. He played for Nevada, and he actually played for my community college as well. Super small world. Yeah, but so we've been kind of thrown in the bucket as the two football guys in the company, and I think we both are like, now, like football's like, we enjoyed being a football player, but right. It's a past life now. Like,
I was gonna say,
it's take pride in it, but it's not me anymore. Yeah, well, right. People who really like football like to think that's the case. I love my dad, but he loves to talk about football like I'm still playing it. And there's a lot of people that even
dads do. Don't take it away from him.
I would never. I love the sport. I love how much he loves that I played football.
If you do, he'll quit cooking for you. So you better mind that.
Yeah, that would suck.
Well, Bud, we got a couple more minutes before I cut you free, and I appreciate you taking us on your path and stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about the current game. You hadn't been out that long, but the college game has changed. It changes every couple of years. There's more concentration by the refs on certain things they're calling, certainly targeting. in the last 10 years has, I mean, just this weekend, how in the world did the Georgia DB not get called for targeting when he knocked out Harrison in the end zone? I thought I saw Crown anyway.
Yeah.
What is it about the game now that you like, and what is it that you don't like?
That's a good question, and I find it hard just because I'm not sure if I can easily list off anything that I genuinely do still like. The things that I fell in love with the game, just the aggression side of it, being able to hit someone for free and not get in trouble. That's the parts of the game that I kind of fell in love with.
Hey, you remember boundaries. Linda in accounting is off limits.
But no, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, like the recruiting. I'm not a huge fan of the way that recruiting is going now. People, 8th graders, 7th graders getting offers and making decisions like that at 13 and 14 years old. I don't think that's healthy. I think it creates a huge ego problem for some of these kids, and I candidly, without throwing any names out there, like I want to say that I was better than that, and I was pretty happy and pretty proud of myself at the time when I was getting my offers. But I think anybody who has ever played could say that maybe some of the incoming guys had a little bit more of an ego than they felt that them and their peers had when they were getting recruited. So I think the recruiting game is in a really weird spot. Throwing NIL into the mix, like absolutely, I think the players should be getting compensated in some form or fashion, but the amount of money that's getting thrown around now just kind of further inflates this ego problem that I think a lot of players are dealing with. The transfer portal, same deal. I think it inflates this ego and entitlement problem that I think a lot of people can agree with.
The power has shifted. Maybe it's always been there, but it is definitely in the forefront now with the athletes.
Right.
Somebody gets, and I'm just talking in generalizations. I can remember Zion Williamson when he came out of high school. He already had 1 or 2 million Instagram followers.
Right.
So he already had that brand. And now athletes, regardless of the sport, we live in that world of instant gratification. And I know these are just vague. I mean,
right.
Overall, and not all the athletes are this way, but I think you're right. I think it's blurred a lot of those lines. It's created a lot of false expectations. Kenny Cole says, being able to hit someone and not being held accountable for it. What a great quote by you. Are you sure? Because Kenny was a badass linebacker for the Commodores. He wants to know, maybe you got a little linebacker blood in you, but that's an awesome quote.
What 1 year at the Pop Warner level.
All right, bud, we got one thing, and this is kind of a little more serious talk. You probably, like we all did last night, saw that horrific event with Hamlin with the Bills. And as we're going live right now, the last thing I heard that he's in critical condition, but they've got some stability, and we certainly wish him a full recovery as soon as possible. But Ryan Clark said it, I think, so succinctly and spot on when he was talking to Scott Van Pelt last night. When you play the sport of football, you have to have no doubt in your mind of your abilities. You have to have no doubt, because if you raise any doubt or you put any doubt, that's where you get hurt. And I'm not saying Hamlin was in that mindset at all.
Right. What
Clark was trying to say was, you have to have this mentality of Superman. You can't be defeated. Talk about, I know this is a weird thing to end on, but talk about that mentality as a competitive athlete when you're lining up against the other guy across the line from you in a game.
I think Norcross probably put it best my sophomore year, and that's kind of one of the big mental shifts that I made my sophomore year was when you're playing unsure, that is when you make mistakes. And not even so much a getting hurt thing, is when you're not sure what to do, that's when you mess up. Someone actually gave me a really good analogy recently about like a deer stuck in the middle of the road, stuck in headlights. A deer that's unsure of what to do ends up getting hit, kind of thing. You need to just make a decision and make it fast. If it's wrong, do it fast. It gives you a chance. So, and I think that applies the same thing as I was saying before, things that translate into real world, situations. Make a decision and stick with it. If you don't, and you sit there just going, like no one around you is going to feel confident, you shouldn't feel confident in yourself. So, like it's a really cliche saying, but confidence is key. As long as you're confident in what you're doing something fast and you're doing something with intent, as I guess would be the best way to put it. At the very least, it's going to give you a fighting shot. If you walk around unsure, you're just going to get passed up.
And if you are unsure, repeat this mantra that we're going to trademark and put on some shirts. Being able to hit someone and not being held accountable for it. Egidio 76 EJ DellaRipa. One, thank you for the awesome quote that I'm now going to put on our group chat. And two, thank you for sharing your story with us tonight. It has been my pleasure getting to know you a little bit, bud.
Pleasure's been all mine, sir. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And guys, it's a new year. We're starting off with a banger of a conversation tonight with EJ. Awesome. I need you to start showing up. I want you at the spring game in April. A bunch of us are coming. We got to get Bruno. We got to get as many former players to come and show some support for Team 3, for Coach Lee and all the great stuff that got going on. So, Bud, thank you. I know you and I are going to cross paths in the legal world sometime soon. Hang on for just a second.
Will do.
I'm getting them all lined up. And by the way, I just found out that Ben Bresnahan and Maxwell Worship are going to the Gridiron Showcase in Fort Worth this weekend. I'll find something and put it out there, but another postseason recognition for a couple of Team 2 members. Awesome stuff. But keep coming back, guys. Every week we got some new Commodores and got some good stuff going on. So y'all anchor down.
Anchor down.